Well, as we continue to talk about the E. coli outbreak in our state and across the country related to McDonald's and their quarter pounders, we talk about 26 of the nearly 50 total cases are in Colorado, including the lone death linked to the outbreak, which we know happened now out in Mesa County on the western slope. So let's talk about the medical side of E. coli and what you need to know, how dangerous it is. So our 9 health expert, Dr. Payal Kohli, has come in. So when we hear about E. coli, we tend to hear about it about something we've ingested. Is that the way most people get it, from food or drink?
Very common to get this as a foodborne illness, but you can actually also get it from touching contaminated surfaces and others. So if you think about E. coli, we all have E. coli in our gut, right? It lives in our gut. This particular...
Normally.
Yes, in healthy people. This particular strain of E. coli, E. coli 0157, lives in the gut of cattle and farm animals, but not in humans. So if food, such as any kind of lettuce or that type of food, or even meat gets contaminated with the feces or it's undercooked, that's how it can then spread to humans. Now, humans who handle cattle can get it. You go to a petting zoo, you don't wash your hands, you can get it. But if somebody else in your home has E. coli 0157, they can transmit it through you through what's called fecal oral spread. They don't wash their hands properly, or you touch something that's contaminated by stool and you can catch it that way.
Yeah, how transferable is it, and then what type of symptoms can people actually look out for?
So if you're sitting next to me, I don't have to worry so much. But if you haven't washed your hands or you touch a surface, then I then touch, or you prepare my food and pass on some of those toxins, the bacteria into the food, then you can catch it. So it's pretty transmissible. So what I would say is if you have somebody at home, you definitely want to exercise some precautions. But the symptoms usually come on about maybe, 1 to 10 days after exposure, but it averages about 3. So if you've gone to McDonald's a few days ago and you haven't had symptoms for 10 days, you're probably in the clear. But really think about whether you start having symptoms. Most likely abdominal pain and vomiting are the early symptoms. So what this bacteria does is it releases 2 types of toxins, Shiga 1 and Shiga 2. Shiga 1 causes a watery diarrhea. Shiga 2 causes a bloody diarrhea because it pops open the cells in your colon. So you start with watery and turn to bloody usually by about day 5 or so. You don't always have a fever unless it's early in the course, but the vomiting. So painful abdominal cramps, diarrhea, either watery or watery turning to bloody, these are signs you might have E. coli 0157.
I'd like to unask that question now after that, after that answer. So, I mean, whether you watch documentaries, I have a friend who's studying foodborne illnesses right now. You get the feeling that we'll never eat again once you see one of these documentaries or something. It's there. Do different people, though, manage this? Like some people can eat this food and it doesn't bother them, and others it affects dramatically?
Very much so, and that's why sometimes the spread will catch you off guard because you don't even feel that sick. You go to the bathroom, you don't wash your hands properly and give it to someone else. So you can have all the way from asymptomatic to ending up in the intensive care unit with a condition called hemolytic uremic syndrome, where the bacteria and the toxins start poisoning your blood cells and shutting down your kidneys. Now, the people that end up in the ICU generally are the younger kids, less than 10, and sort of the older patients as well.
Like flu.
That's exactly right. But sometimes the amount of bacteria or the way that your colon and your body react to the toxin, just like we talked about with COVID, it's not necessarily the infection, but the way the body reacts to the infection. It goes to war with the infection that can trigger this type of a reaction as well. So I would say for most of us, because we have this now in our state of Colorado, we have to have our guard up. And whether we have watery diarrhea or bloody diarrhea, we should reach out to our doctors because it's really important to get connected with healthcare early. Now, there's not a great treatment for this. You can't use antibiotics, right, because that makes it worse. Do not use Imodium. So do not go to the drugstore and get Imodium or something to shut down your gut. That'll make it worse. But if you do start to develop kidney dysfunction, anemia, or the platelets go down, those are the signs that it's becoming severe.
I get the feeling most of the times we hear about it, it involves produce. The produce is the common problem. When you say have your guard up, there's not a lot you can do. You presume the people who deliver the food, the people who put the food in front of you, the people who serve it to you, are doing everything they can, or are supposed to be doing everything they can.
Right.
That's your guard.
So if it's contaminated produce, Tom, you're absolutely right, nothing to do. But contaminated meat, if you cook that to a high temperature, 160 degrees, you will inactivate that toxin and the bacteria. So that's really important to do as well. And then again, washing those hands and making sure if you're touching any animals, you're careful. And if you have somebody at home who's sick, they need a separate bathroom. They need separate sheets. They can't touch your food for at least 48 hours until they're symptom-free. Just making sure you try to exercise as many of those precautions. But we don't think about food poisoning as a life-threatening illness. dangerous. But in this particular strain of E. coli, it can be. So we really have to be a lot more careful.
Well, there's a lot more to learn about this particular outbreak of E. coli in Colorado, but good insight as always. Thanks, Dr. Payal Kohli.